In a time long ago, in the land of Uz, lived a man named Job, known as the most upright and blameless man of his generation. He was wealthy, respected, and deeply devoted to God. But unseen in the heavens, a challenge was set. Would Job still honor God if everything he had was stripped away? What followed was a journey of unimaginable loss, unwavering faith, and a divine encounter that would change him forever. This is the story of Job. In the ancient land of Uz, there lived a man named Job. He was a man of great integrity, a man who was blameless and upright. He lived in deep reverence for God and went out of his way to avoid evil. Job was incredibly prosperous. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He had a large family of 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons would hold feasts in their homes, and Job, with a father's heart, would make sure to offer burnt sacrifices for them. He would say, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This was his ritual, his way of constantly purifying his family before God. One day, in the heavenly courts, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord. Satan, the accuser, came among them. The Lord asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan replied, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." The Lord then said, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Satan scoffed. "Does Job fear God for nothing?" he challenged. "Haven't you put a hedge of protection around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now, stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord granted Satan permission, but with a firm boundary. "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself you must not lay a hand." Satan left the Lord's presence, and his work began. On the very day that Job's sons and daughters were feasting together, disaster struck. A messenger rushed to Job, breathless and terrified. "The Sabaeans attacked and took the oxen and donkeys," he said, "and they put the servants to the sword. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." He had barely finished speaking when another messenger arrived. "Fire from heaven fell and burned up the sheep and the servants," he cried out. "I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." This second man was still speaking when a third came running. "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on the camels and made off with them," he gasped. "They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." Then a fourth messenger arrived, delivering the most devastating news of all. "Your sons and daughters were feasting in your oldest son's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." In that single day, Job had lost everything he owned and every one of his children. But Job did not curse God. Instead, he got up, tore his robe, and shaved his head as a sign of deep mourning. He fell to the ground in an act of worship and said, in a voice filled with profound sorrow yet absolute faith, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. The angels again came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan was among them. The Lord again praised Job, saying, "He still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without cause." Satan persisted with his accusations. "Skin for skin," he sneered. "A man will give all he has for his own life. But stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord gave Satan permission once more, but with one final, unchangeable command. "Very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life." Satan departed from the presence of the Lord and immediately struck Job with terrible, painful boils from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Job, in absolute agony, went and sat among the ashes, scraping his sores with a piece of broken pottery. It was in this wretched state that his wife came to him. Grieving and desperate herself, she looked at him and said, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job rebuked her. "You are talking like a foolish woman," he said. "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. The arrival of the friends, 3 of Job's friends, when they saw him from a distance, he was so unrecognizable that they raised their voices and wept. They tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads as a sign of their grief. Then they sat with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was too great to be spoken of. Finally, Job broke his silence. He opened his mouth and cursed the day he was born, wishing he had never been born at all. This lamentation ignited a long, fierce, and emotional debate between him and his friends. The friends, in their ancient wisdom, believed in a simple, direct cause and effect universe. They argued that suffering was always a punishment for sin. Therefore, they concluded that Job must have committed some terrible hidden sin to deserve such a punishment. They urged him to confess his wrongdoing to God and repent. Job, in turn, passionately defended his innocence. He acknowledged his human fallibility, but maintained he had done nothing to deserve such a catastrophic punishment. He cried out to God, demanding an audience with him, pleading for justice and an explanation. He felt God had become his enemy, striking him down without cause. The debate went on for 35 chapters, a torrent of powerful, poetic arguments with no resolution. A younger man named Elihu, who had been listening to the debate, finally spoke up, offering a new perspective. He argued that God uses suffering not always for punishment, but sometimes for discipline and to bring a person closer to him. But the arguments of men were silenced by the voice of God himself. From the midst of a majestic whirlwind, the Lord began to speak to Job. He didn't answer Job's questions. He didn't explain the heavenly wager with Satan. Instead, he began to ask Job a series of humbling, awe-inspiring questions. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Have you ever given orders to the morning, or shown the dawn its place? Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail? He revealed his power and wisdom, showing Job that he was not a distant or unjust deity, but the sovereign, all-knowing creator of all things. Overwhelmed by the encounter, Job was humbled. He finally understood his limited perspective and his arrogant demands for an explanation. He replied to the Lord, "I know that you can do all things. No plan of yours can be thwarted. Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." Job's humility was his turning point. The Lord then turned to the 3 friends and rebuked them, saying, You have not spoken the truth about me, as my servant Job has." He commanded them to offer a burnt offering, and told them that he would accept Job's prayer on their behalf. For only through Job's intercession would their foolish words be forgiven. And as Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes. The Lord made Job prosperous again, and gave him double everything he had lost. His sheep numbered 14,000, his camels 6,000, his oxen 1,000 yoke, and his donkeys 1,000. He had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters, and his daughters were the most beautiful in the land. Job lived for another 140 years, and he saw his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren to the 4th generation. He died, old and full of days, a testament to a faith that remained unshaken, even in the face of the greatest suffering.